Hey there, friend. Before we begin tonight's gentle journey into history, I'd like to invite you to take a moment to relax. If you enjoy these calm bedtime stories, remember you can subscribe to the channel, leave a quiet little like, or even share a thought in the comments. Every small gesture helps these soft histories continue, and it means a lot to me. Now, let's set everything else aside for a while. Rest your head, close your eyes if you'd like, and let the story carry you into a slower, quieter world. Tonight, we're going to wander into the past, into a time before streetlights, when darkness itself shaped the rhythm of human life. Imagine yourself hundreds of years ago, standing in a small village, just as the sun begins to dip behind the horizon. The warm glow of daylight is fading, and little by little, the sky turns from gold to violet, and then finally to deep blue. The shadows stretch long across the ground, and before you even notice, the familiar details of your surroundings begin to blur into one another. There are no glowing street lamps waiting to flicker on, no humming neon signs, no comforting city glow on the horizon. Once the sun sets, the night belongs mostly to darkness. In that moment, you would have felt a shift, not only in the sky, but in your body and mind. Sunset wasn't just a beautiful event to watch. It was a warning. It signaled the end of safe activity and the beginning of caution. For most people across history, daylight hours were everything. You worked, gathered food, tended the land, or ran your trade while the sun was out. But once night fell, your world grew small, limited to what you could see in the faintest glow of a candle or fire. You might have noticed the sudden quiet as well. In villages and towns, people hurried to finish their tasks before darkness swallowed the streets. Tools were put away, market stalls were shut, doors were locked, and animals were brought back into their pens. With so little light to rely on, there was little reason to wander outside. The night pressed in on the edges of your vision, and people often felt a sense of unease, as if unseen dangers could slip out from the shadows. For you, today, nighttime may feel gentle, even safe. You may enjoy taking a walk under the streetlights or reading in bed with the soft glow of a lamp. But in the world before artificial light, darkness was powerful, almost alive. It shaped behavior, culture, and imagination. People looked into the blackness and saw not just emptiness, but mystery, uncertainty, and even fear. Now, picture how different it would have felt inside a small home at dusk. The family might have gathered around the hearth, the only steady light source available. The fire wasn't just for warmth or cooking, it was the heart of the household, the fragile boundary between comfort and the dark outside. The flickering glow painted moving shadows across the walls. If you were a child in such a place, you might have found those shadows magical or frightening. Every shifting form could resemble something more than it really was. A spirit, a creature, a face in the dark. Outside, the last traces of twilight faded, and the world seemed to fall away. Streets and paths that were familiar in daylight became dangerous mazes. A cart left on the road could trip you. A ditch could send you tumbling. And in forests or fields, the night belonged to animals. Some harmless, others less so. People believed thieves and mischief makers preferred the cover of darkness. And whether or not that was always true, the fear was real enough to keep most honest folk indoors. Still, Nightfall wasn't only about fear. There was also wonder in it. For anyone who paused to look up, the night sky stretched wide and endless, filled with stars far brighter than we can usually see today. The lack of artificial light meant the heavens revealed themselves fully. You could trace the long curve of the Milky Way, watch the slow crawl of constellations, or stand in awe at the pale glow of the moon. For many, this was a time to tell stories, to weave myths about the stars, and to feel connected to something larger and more mysterious than daily life. Think of how quiet the world must have been then. With no electric hum, no cars, no buzzing lamps, the night was almost entirely still. You could hear the crackle of a fire, the creak of wooden beams, or the distant call of an owl. Every sound seemed sharper, carrying across the empty spaces. If someone approached on the road at night, you might hear them long before you saw them. For people in those times, adjusting to the darkness was a skill. Eyes slowly learned to pick up faint outlines. Feet learned to feel familiar paths. But there was always a limit, a boundary the dark would not let you cross without light. And so, the rhythm of life bent to the sun. Rise with its warmth, rest with its setting. The day belonged to work and movement, the night to stillness and sleep. And yet, even as people feared the dark, they also adapted to it. Nighttime became a space of intimacy and reflection. Families sat closer together, sharing tales or songs. Some prayed, some dreamed, some simply sat in silence, watching the fire fade to embers. Darkness forced people inward, into their homes, into their thoughts, into their inner worlds. As you let yourself drift into this picture, imagine what it would feel like to live without the steady glow of modern lights, to walk a road where only the moon marks your path, to sit by a fire and know that, beyond its small circle of light, the vast night stretches endlessly. There is a certain peace in that thought, even if it is laced with shadows, a peace that perhaps we have lost in our well-lit world. And so, as the first true darkness falls in our story, you begin to see how deeply night shaped human experience. It wasn't just the absence of light. It was a presence of its own, a force that touched every part of life. In the quiet and the mystery of those ancient nights, you can almost feel yourself slipping back in time, listening to the soft breath of history itself. Now that you've settled into the rhythm of the past, let's stay with the night a little longer. You've already imagined the silence after sunset, the firelight flickering inside a small home, and the vast darkness stretching just beyond the doorway. But in that darkness, people saw more than emptiness. They felt the presence of danger, of spirits, of forces they could not fully explain. Fear of the dark was one of the deepest and most universal experiences of human history, and it shaped how people lived, prayed, and imagined their world. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself as someone living centuries ago. You've finished your day's work and you're inside your house. The door is closed, the fire is burning low. Outside, the wind whistles through the trees, carrying with it noises you can't quite place. Was that a fox rustling in the brush, or something more threatening? Was that a branch cracking under its own weight, or the sound of footsteps? With no lamplight to confirm what your ears picked up, your imagination filled in the blanks. And usually, the imagination did not lean toward comfort. For our ancestors, the night was full of unseen creatures. In Europe, people told stories of witches who worked their mischief under moonlight, of wandering spirits that lured travelers into swamps, and of demons who moved in the shadows. In Africa, night could belong to trickster spirits or the restless dead. In Asia, myths told of ghostly women who walked under the moon, or of dangerous beasts that came alive only after dusk. Everywhere, the dark was the perfect stage for legends, because in the absence of sight, the mind painted its own pictures. Think of a child in a medieval village, lying awake in bed. The straw mattress is scratchy, the room is cold, and the firelight has burned down to glowing embers. Every sound seems louder in the silence. The hoot of an owl could become the cry of a phantom. The scratching of a rat in the thatch above might sound like claws of something much larger. For a child, these fears were powerful. But even adults were not free of them. Darkness stripped away certainty, and in its place grew caution, superstition, and reverence for the forces they believed ruled the night. In many places, darkness was not just scary, it was morally charged. People thought evil thrived in shadows. Robbery, violence, and sin were said to flourish after sundown. Religious texts spoke of the night as a time of temptation, when the faithful had to guard their souls carefully. To step outside without reason was almost to invite trouble. For this reason, towns and villages often imposed curfews, not only for safety, but also to keep order and discourage what they saw as wickedness. But beyond the moral and spiritual fears, there were very real dangers in the night. Imagine yourself traveling on a lonely road after sunset. You carry a small torch, its flame sputtering in the wind. The light illuminates only a few steps ahead, leaving everything else swallowed by blackness. Every rustle in the bushes makes your heart beat faster. Highwaymen were known to wait in dark corners, striking when travelers could least expect it. Wild animals, wolves in Europe, jackals in Asia, leopards in Africa, often hunted under the cover of night. To be caught outside after dark was to be exposed, vulnerable, and often helpless. These fears seeped into language and culture. Even today, we speak of dark thoughts, dark deeds, and dark times. The color black and the idea of shadow carry heavy symbolic weight, inherited from centuries when people truly believed the night belonged to danger. Sleep itself was tinged with fear. Without the security of light, people sometimes believed that nightmares were not only dreams, but visits from restless spirits pressing upon their chests. Some cultures placed protective charms near their beds, hoping to keep away whatever moved in the darkness. At the same time, fear of the night created community bonds. Families gathered closer. Villages built walls or gates, and people trusted in neighbors for safety. Shared stories about spirits and dangers became a way to teach children caution and to strengthen group identity. If you and everyone you knew believed the woods were haunted, then none of you would risk wandering off alone. Fear was a form of protection, reminding people of their limits and drawing them together in shared vulnerability. And yet, as frightening as the night was, people could not avoid it entirely. Farmers sometimes had to check their animals. Fishermen set out before dawn, rowing into dark waters guided only by the stars. Soldiers, monks, and messengers often traveled at night, braving the shadows for duty or faith. For them, fear was a constant companion. Some carried charms, whispered prayers, or sang softly to themselves as they moved through the night. It was a way of pushing back against the unease, reminding themselves they were not alone. If you let yourself drift into their place, you can almost feel the weight of that fear pressing in around you. Picture yourself in a forest at midnight, centuries ago. The trees tower high, blocking the sky. The torch in your hand sputters, and for a moment, it goes out. The darkness becomes absolute, pressing against your skin like a heavy blanket. You can't see your hand in front of your face. In that instant, you feel the same fear that countless generations before you felt, the fear of being swallowed whole by the unknown. And so, night was never just a neutral backdrop. It was alive in the imagination, peopled with spirits, animals, thieves, and shadows. Fear of the dark-shaped religion, culture, community rules, and even the stories people told each other by the fire. It reminded them that they were small, fragile creatures in a vast, dangerous world. As you let that thought settle, you may feel your own body grow heavy with drowsiness. Here in your bed, with modern lights and safe walls, the old fear cannot reach you. But as your eyelids grow heavier, you carry with you the faint echo of that ancient unease. The knowledge that once, long ago, humans lived with a night far deeper and far more mysterious than we can truly imagine.